On April 27, 2026, the Spanish royal household issued a statement that, on the surface, sounded completely routine. Princess Leonor, heir to the Spanish throne, would be enrolling in a 4-year political science degree at Carlos III University in Getafe, starting in the autumn term. She had completed the admissions process, passed the evaluation committee, and would begin her studies in September. The palace confirmed she would balance her academic work with her ongoing institutional duties as heir to the crown, exactly as she had done during her military training. That was the official version. Routine. Institutional. Measured. The kind of palace statement that gets a paragraph in the Royal News Roundup and moves on. Here is what was actually inside that statement, once you understand the context. Spain's future queen had just completed 3 years of full military training, across the Army, Navy, and Air Force, the most rigorous air preparation program of any European monarchy in modern history. She had parachuted from aircraft at night. She had flown military jets solo. She had lived in a dormitory with 11 other women and crawled through mud in field exercises and spent weeks at sea on a tall ship with minimal contact with the outside world. She had done all of this without a special track, without adjusted standards, without a version of the program built for a princess rather than a cadet. And now, instead of retreating to the private, internationally prestigious, elite institution that most European royal families have used to prepare their heirs, the Oxfords, the Sciences POS, the exclusive colleges designed to produce heads of state who move through a world already built for them, she was going to a public university in the Madrid suburbs, sitting in the same lecture theater as everyone else, studying the same syllabus, taking the same famously brutal statistics and macroeconomics exams that every political science student at Carlos III dreads. King Felipe had formally notified the president of the government about the university choice before it was announced, a procedural step the palace described as reflecting the institutional importance attached to her preparation for the role of sovereign. In other words, this was not a casual decision about which campus had the nicest buildings. It was a deliberate, considered, formally communicated strategic choice about how the future Queen of Spain would spend the next 4 years of her life, and by extension, what kind of monarch she would be. That decision, combined with everything that came before it, has done something quietly significant across the continent. It has created a new benchmark for what heir preparation looks like, and it has done so in a way that makes almost every other European monarchy's approach look incomplete by comparison. That is what has unsettled them. Not in a way anyone is saying publicly, but in the way that really matters, the way people notice when someone else has done something better and they can't unnotice it. To understand why this benchmark is so significant, you need to understand what heir preparation has historically looked like across Europe's surviving monarchies, and how different the Spanish model is from almost every other version of it. Start with Britain. Prince William, now Prince of Wales and first in line to the British throne, attended the University of St Andrews, where he studied art history and then geography, and where he met Catherine. He then went into the military, the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, followed by active service roles in the Army, the Royal Navy, and the Royal Air Force, and he did serve in real capacities, including flying search and rescue missions. His preparation was genuine, and it was respected, but it was also sequential rather than comprehensive, university first, military after. And the military service, while real, was built around a single career track rather than a deliberate program spanning all 3 branches of the armed forces. By the time he transitioned fully into royal duties, the preparation was done. There was no equivalent to the Spanish model's 3-year, government-approved, branch-by-branch officer pipeline, designed explicitly for the heir's constitutional role as future commander-in-chief. Move to the Netherlands. Princess Catharina Amalia, heir to the Dutch throne, enrolled at the University of Amsterdam in 2021. She chose to do so quietly, very deliberately requesting that she be treated as an ordinary student, that no special measures be taken around her, and that she have the experience of being a young person in a city rather than a princess in an institution. That choice was widely praised in the Netherlands as refreshingly normal. But her preparation has been notably lighter on the institutional dimension, less military engagement, fewer formal solo royal duties during her studies, more deliberate privacy. The trade-off for the authentic student experience has been a lower public profile during a formative period. Belgium's Princess Elizabeth is the heir most often compared directly to Leonor, because their timelines have run roughly parallel. She completed her international baccalaureate at UWC Atlantic College in Wales, the same school as Leonor, and then went into military training at the Royal Military Academy in Brussels. She served in the Belgian Armed Forces and taken on increasing royal duties. But her military training, while genuine, has not been structured as a three-branch comprehensive program. It has been more of a period of service, respected and visible, rather than the kind of officer track qualification across Army, Navy, and Air Force that Leonor completed. Norway's Princess Ingrid Alexandra, granddaughter of King Harald V and second in line to the Norwegian throne, spent 1 year of military service before heading to the University of Sydney in Australia to begin her undergraduate studies. 1 year of military service, one branch. Then an English-language university in the Southern Hemisphere, chosen partly, it seems, for the privacy and distance it provides. Given that her mother, Crown Princess Mette Marit, spent much of 2025 dealing with both the resurfaced Epstein correspondence and her son Marius Borg-Høiby's criminal charges, the decision to send Ingrid Alexandra abroad, far from the Norwegian media cycle, reads as strategic in a different sense entirely, less about preparation for the throne, more about protecting the heir's development from the noise surrounding her family. Sweden's Crown Princess Victoria is not an heir in training, she is the fully active Crown Princess, already carrying a significant public workload alongside her father King Carl XVI Gustaf. But the way she spent 2025, beginning military strategy instruction, wearing military uniform to major events for the first time, training with the Swedish Air Force, reads as a direct response to the same pressure Spain's model has created. Sweden has been moving toward a more rigorous, more militarily engaged air presence. The timing is not coincidental. And in Spain, Leonor has now done all of it. 3 years, 3 branches, officer track standards, solo flight, night parachute jump. And then, rather than disappearing abroad or retreating into an elite institution, she is going to a public university in the city where she grew up, 25 minutes from the palace, in a faculty where students gather in the courtyard for paella lunches and go to a local bar called El Esquinazo afterward for small beers with free tapas. The palace confirmed she will not receive special privileges or a customized program. She will take the same courses, the same exams, the same schedule. She'll make the same 25-minute commute from Zarzuela every morning. She will be surrounded by future politicians, journalists, civil servants, NGO workers, the kinds of people who will run Spain's institutions in 30 years, who will vote in the elections that happen during her reign, who will be the professionals she works with as head of state. And she will know them, personally, from the years they spent in the same lecture theater failing the same statistics exam. That is the decision that has unsettled Europe's monarchies. Not the university itself. Carlos III is a good university, respected and prestigious, but no one is suggesting it rivals Oxford or Sciences Po for global prestige. What's unsettling is the philosophy behind the choice. Because what Spain has done, across 5 years of consecutive decisions about Leonor's preparation, is build a model that is fundamentally different in its underlying logic from the model most other European monarchies are using. Most heir preparation in Europe is built around 2 goals, giving the heir genuine credentials and keeping them safe. Safe from scrutiny, safe from failure, safe from the ordinary friction of life in a country whose institutions they will eventually have to lead. You send them to a prestigious foreign university so they can study without paparazzi. You give them military experience that's genuine but not grueling. You manage their public profile carefully, release selected photos, and keep the less flattering parts of their education private. The goal is a prepared, credentialed, polished heir who arrives at the throne having never been publicly embarrassed. Spain's model is built around a different goal entirely. The goal, as the palace itself stated when the military training was announced, is to reinforce the capacity for service and dedication, and to prepare the heir for the representational duties she will carry as future commander-in-chief. But look at the specific choices made within that goal: the shared dormitory, the public university, the no special privileges admissions process, and you see something additional. The goal is not just to prepare Leonor to lead Spain. The goal is to make Spain watch her preparing. To make the process itself public, iterative, and earned in a way that the public can follow and verify over time, rather than simply being told about after the fact. This distinction matters enormously in the current environment for European monarchies, because the single most dangerous thing any of them faces right now is not scandal, it's distance. The sense that the institution exists in a separate, protected, unreachable world, making decisions about the country it represents without ever really being in it. Juan Carlos's hunting trip to Botswana while Spain was in economic crisis wasn't just a scandal because of the money, it was a scandal because it confirmed a suspicion that the monarchy operated in a bubble that national suffering couldn't reach. What Leonor's preparation has done, over 5 years, is systematically puncture that bubble in the most visible, documented way possible. She slept in a dormitory. She was called Cadet Bourbon Ortiz with no title attached. She went through an admissions process for a public university, and the palace specifically noted that the evaluation committee had given a favorable decision, the phrasing of an institution following its normal process, not of a palace getting special treatment. She will commute from home every day, sitting in traffic like the students around her. Taking notes in the same classes, stressing about the same deadlines. The other European monarchies have noticed. None of them are saying it publicly, because publicly acknowledging that another country's model makes yours look insufficient is not something institutions do. But the evidence of noticing is in the movement. Sweden accelerating Victoria's military engagement in 2025. Belgium maintaining Elizabeth's military presence. Norway sending Ingrid Alexandra through a year of service before university. These are not coincidences of timing. They are adaptations, made in the context of a monarchy that has set a new standard, and done so in a way that cannot be ignored because it has been so thoroughly visible and so thoroughly documented over 5 consecutive years. There is also a specific structural reason why this matters beyond the optics of heir preparation. Spain is unique among Europe's surviving constitutional monarchies in having a monarch who serves as supreme commander of the armed forces under the constitution. That is not a ceremonial title with no practical content. It is a constitutional designation that requires the head of state to have a functional relationship with the military institutions she nominally commands, to be taken seriously by military leadership, to understand the institution she leads, to be able to represent it credibly in a crisis. Leonor completing 3 years of full officer track training across all 3 branches is not just about personal development. It is about the constitutional functioning of the institution she is inheriting. No other European monarchy has quite this constitutional configuration in quite this way. But several of them have their own versions of a military role for the head of state, and all of them are watching what Spain did with that role, built a 3-year program, got government approval by royal decree, sent the heir through it without shortcuts, and then announced the results incrementally, milestone by milestone, in a way that built public trust over time rather than presenting a finished, polished product. The contrast with the British model is particularly stark, not because William's preparation was inadequate, but because the systems are so different in their philosophy. Britain's approach trusts that the heir's preparation happens in private institutions, among people of equivalent status, away from public scrutiny, and that the public will take it on faith that the result is competent. Spain's approach in Leonor's case has been almost the opposite. Make the preparation as visible and as ordinary as possible, let the public watch the process rather than just the result, and build trust through demonstrated competence over time rather than assumed competence by virtue of birth. And now, with the university decision, Spain has taken that philosophy to its logical next step. Leonor will spend the next 4 years in a public institution, visible to everyone around her, studied by every journalist in Madrid, evaluated by the same professors who evaluate everyone else, building relationships with the people who will staff Spain's institutions for the next generation. Her classmates will remember her not as a distant figure they saw on television but as the person who sat next to them in the 3rd row and bombed the same midterm. That familiarity, that groundedness, is what the palace is building. And it is the thing that is hardest for any other European monarchy to replicate without making the same choices, for the same reasons, over the same amount of time. You cannot fake 5 years of accumulated public trust. You cannot announce, in a single press release, that your heir went through something equivalent to what Leonor went through. The Spanish model works precisely because it unfolded slowly, publicly, and without shortcuts. The question the rest of Europe's monarchies are sitting with is not whether Spain made the right decision. It clearly did, by almost every measure available. The question is whether their own models of heir preparation, the prestigious foreign universities, the lighter military engagements, the carefully managed privacy, are still sufficient for the environment monarchies are operating in. Whether a public that is increasingly skeptical of institutions, increasingly able to fact-check claims of preparation and competence, and increasingly impatient with the gap between what institutions say about themselves and what can actually be verified, whether that public is still willing to take heir preparation on faith. Spain decided it wasn't, and it built a model to respond to that reality. Whether Europe's other monarchies reach the same conclusion, and whether they reach it before or after the public reaches it for them, is the most interesting question in royal politics right now. If you've been following this series, you already know what comes next. Leonor starts university in September, begins her first solo institutional agenda as heir, and the real test of everything Spain has built begins. Subscribe so you don't miss it.